What if the upcoming Clayface movie has the potential to be far more than just a seasonal spin-off story? What if it could be the catalyst for a turn down the darkest but most profitable path the DCU has ever taken? A shift to pure existential horror.
Stick around.
And I'll explain how they can do it. Theories are cropping up everywhere now on social media about Clayface, the third film release from James Gunn's DC universe since his co-takeover as co-CEO. The movie is slated for theatrical premiere a week before Halloween, and the most popular question about it online is, which version of the brown blob will we see on the silver screen? Considering that in the past 8 decades of Batman stories, we've seen 8 different men identify themselves as Clayface, will Gunn be adapting the most familiar version of the story? That of Matt Hagen and his feet of clay from the animated series? Will DC incorporate elements of previous iterations, the acidic skin of Preston Payne, the master mimic of Basil Karlo? No matter the variation we finally receive, fans of the character can anticipate a body horror tragedy akin to Jeff Goldblum's The Fly.
Look at me, does this look sick? Does this look like a sick man to you?
Or more recently, Corley Farjat's modern classic, The Substance. But the real question we should be asking ourselves is this: does DC Studios, now under fresh management at the top, have the stones for a return to truly traumatizing psychological horror, grotesque mental and physical transformation, staged within a grim, gritty, and realistic depiction of Gotham, like the one we saw in 2019's Joker?
You think men like Thomas Wayne ever think what it's like to be someone like me? To be somebody but themselves? They don't. They think that we'll just sit there and take it like good little boys, that we won't werewolf and go wild.
For James Gunn, the Ellisons, for Warner Brothers, their next step is critical.
Your next move is critical.
And DC cannot claim that going down the darkest path possible after this recent merger won't work for them. They already proved it works 6 years ago. Joker made $1 billion worldwide on a $62 million budget, the largest profit margin for an R-rated movie to that point. Clayface represents a tremendous opportunity to return us to that grounded reality of Arthur Fleck, that 2019 Gotham City. We could even perhaps splice in elements of the increasingly popular Absolute Batman comic series, a hybrid reality of the mundane and the supernatural, where both the skin and sanity of all human beings is fragile and the dead stay dead. And I understand completely if you're thinking, but Arthur Fleck is dead. He died in the Joker sequel, and it doesn't work canonically anyway because of the age gap between he and the young Bruce Wayne. I know all that. I'm talking about returning to the world of Joker, not to the character himself. But there is a character who does work you might have forgotten. Since it factors in completely with the Clayface theory I'm about to present, have you ever considered that the man in the clown mask who kills Bruce Wayne's parents is the same cult-like follower who stabs Arthur Fleck in prison? That this guy,
you get what you fucking deserve.
No, pal!
is also this guy.
How about I get you what you deserve? I can't believe you're here, he says. What a disappointment. I used to watch you on TV. What can I get you? And this clown turns and says, well, if you're buying, you can get me anything. Perfect, the psychopath says.
When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Keep that guy in mind. We'll return to him shortly. But this movie's tonal shift could also provide the perfect opportunity for something much bigger, the fulfillment of an ambition DC fans have clamored for over the past 3 decades. This Clayface film could lead us to an Arkham Asylum movie.
Loosen up, tight ass.
That's impossible!
No, it's not.
I'm not talking about the rated T for teen Arkham, not some live-action interpretation of the Rocksteady game.
I set a trap, and you sprang it gloriously.
I'm talking about an R-rated, emotionally devastating 9-inch nails intro having sitting in the corner of a room naked, covered in pig blood, teeth clenched on a scrap of shoe leather with a broken needle stuck in your arm, dragging broken fingernails down your cheeks because you just can't reach the Chinese water torture itch underneath, style of a Gotham nightmare. I'm talking about a movie based exclusively on Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious earth.
Kiss me, Charlie, ravish me, but no tongues, you hear? Not on our first date.
A true Batman horror movie, the first of its kind, one that haunts people's dreams like The Ring or Hereditary. And here we begin. For all the speculation I've seen about which version of Clayface we're going to see during this upcoming All Hallows Eve, only a few people have brought up this guy, the Clayface who appears in a single 2-page spread in Arkham Asylum, the version whose creator referred to him as AIDS on legs. How does Clayface from the animated series go from this juggernaut to this? Follow me down the wormhole now and I'll explain how an end credit scene in Gunn's next movie can lead us straight inside Grant Morrison's asylum. Now our first step is to dissect everything we have been provided about Clayface in the 1989 graphic novel which connects him to Batman. Clayface himself only appears once in the narrative, but in the back of the book, in what could be interpreted as the inmates writing their own psych profiles on index cards, Clayface reflects on his miserable existence. In a font which suggests he's scratching words into a wall with his melting acidic skin or with his own putrid excrement, he writes,
"Not born shit into existence. Tumor abortion baby. Sick excretion. Mommy, mommy. I am not an animal. Infected skin. The psalm of the skin is my delight. A country of pestilence. Garden of disease. Sweating poison. Tears of pus. I only want to touch you. Hold me in your arms and tell me everything's okay, mommy. But I rise from the plague pit, specter of filth. The Father, the Sin, and the Holy Gross."
Not born shit into existence suggests that at the end, Matt Hagen saw himself as lower than excrement. So you may understand now why I keep bringing up Joker 2019. That passage sounds like it could just as easily be written into the journals of Arthur Fleck. Morrison's Clayface is not the desperate actor looking for a cure for his skin disease to save his Hollywood career. This is a chaos agent, a man who has abandoned all hope and only wants to see the world burn. A suicide bomber who seeks only to share his disease and make others suffer, to kill as many as he can before his time is up, and he splatters into the ground like Monstro Eliza Sue in Substance. This Clayface is pure evil, Satan from the Book of Revelations.
"Woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you with great fury, for he knows his time is short."
Next, we have to imagine how Clayface's 2-page panel spread would play out in a movie. Not the Clayface movie, but in our hypothetical Arkham Asylum sequel, as Morrison envisioned it. Here's what leads up to Batman's brief reunion with Clayface.
You're in the real world now, and the lunatics have taken over the asylum.
The premise of Morrison's story is simple, but the execution is complex. Joker has taken over Arkham Asylum, taken hostages, and has agreed to release them only if Batman agrees to enter the asylum alone. He does, admitting to Commissioner Gordon,
"I'm afraid. I'm afraid that the Joker may be right about me. Sometimes I question the rationality of my actions. And I'm afraid that when I walk through those asylum gates, when I walk into Arkham, and the doors close behind me, it'll be just like coming home."
Once inside, Joker reveals his trap. Not all hostages have been released, and he wants to play a game.
I want to play a game.
There's no way out, and Batman must retreat into the shadows of the asylum, where he will be hunted down and killed by a nightmarish version of all the villains he locked away in here. After executing an asylum guard, Joker holds a pistol to the head of his own therapist to prompt Batman into sprinting away.
Now, Batman, run. The game ends at midnight. Run. Run.
Deep within the decrepit, mildew-stinking walls of the century-old asylum, Batman's sanity snaps in a green stick fracture, tortured by the guilt of not being able to prevent his parents' murder, mere moments after being chastised by his father for being a coward and a baby. The Bruce Wayne beneath the black mask facade punches mirrors and stabs himself with broken glass as punishment for his childhood failure. And it's at that exact moment Clayface appears, but not as we have known him from before. If you're familiar with Clayface's established lore, you know it's fitting that he says, "Only you can help me," because canonically, Batman was the only person willing to help the Matt Hagen iteration when everyone else abandoned him out of fear and disgust. But this Batman does not have the mental capacity to help anyone anymore. He's a fox in a trap, chewing off his own leg to escape. He's Jigsaw's Dr. Gordon at the end of the first Saw movie. However, this 2-page spread doesn't do justice to the cinematic vision Grant Morrison had for this final interaction between Bruce Wayne and Matt Hagen, in which the former apparently kills Clayface by snapping his rotten leg off at the knee, leaving him to bleed out and die alone.
I just want to share my disease.
Don't.
Oh?
Don't touch me!
No, wait. Oh, Jesus Christ, my leg. Oh, my.
Note that out of all possible villains, the author chose Clayface to approach Batman first in the halls of the sanitarium, and it's when our hero is racked by guilt and regret, engaged in cutting and self-harm, calling out for his dead mother, Batman could not possibly be more vulnerable. You have to read Grant Morrison's script at the back of the book to see just how much more elaborately he had envisioned Clayface's death, and just how much the artist, Dave McKean, has jettisoned that vision with obscurity, tight frames, and shadowed rectangular corners. First off, when we see Clayface dragging his hand along the walls, it looks like he's rubbing off a layer of dirt and grime, but he's actually melting the material of the wall itself with his seeping flesh. Grant writes, quote, "The paint on the wall bubbles and runs under his withering touch." Secondly, when Clayface says, "My skin is sick," he doesn't just mean he's contagious. His touch has grown so potent, it literally infects, burns, and melts upon contact, a pestilence like one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. In a moment which the illustrations don't include, on page 37, Morrison's script describes Batman's arm grazed by Clayface's touch, and, quote, "At this slight touch, Batman's skin comes up in blisters which burst and release pus." None of this agony, this nuance, is included in the illustrations, leaving us with the unbalanced impression that Clayface is a desperate victim looking for help, and Batman executes him purely out of fright. The script, by contrast, presents this interaction as much more of a brawl. Batman is actually backed up against the wall of an alcove, a cornered animal, and Clayface is the predator. Just when he thinks he'll avoid detection and the muttering villain will wander past him, Grant writes, quote, "Clayface turns to Batman and his eyes light up, his face a seeping mess of bubbling running flesh, filled with a terrible mad ecstasy. He licks ruined lips." Only after being attacked and wounded painfully, Clayface's touch melting his flesh right through his suit, does Batman dodge and weave. Then he mercilessly kicks Clayface to death like Billy Bats in Goodfellas until his body goes limp. Like me, you may have been initially surprised years ago when Morrison criticized his artist, Dave McKean, expressing disappointment with the way McKean presented his final draft of the script, which the author wrote unorthodoxically in the form of a screenplay. How can you be disappointed, I thought? Dave McKean's impressionist, psychedelic style is what made this story so haunting and visceral. That's like the creator of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series, Alvin Schwartz, criticizing Stephen Gammell. Those black and white illustrations are more iconic and recognizable than the stories themselves. But if you read Morrison's brilliant script in full, you'll see it's not his illustrator's style which the author resented. It's how much Dave left out, or better stated, how much he left us, the reader, in the dark about what was happening. How much he did not communicate that Morrison wanted us to see and hear. Now that we've established Clayface's final irreversible death in our hypothetical Arkham Asylum sequel, our next question is, what has to happen at the end of James Gunn's Halloween Offering to lead Batman into the madhouse as a natural progression of his own story? And how is Clayface rendered so completely vulnerable and helpless? A frail, underweight, jaundiced figure who can be dispatched like a senior citizen in a nursing home with a few swift strikes. This is the way Morrison explains Clayface in the script. Quote, "Close up on his hand, his melted, deformed flesh, his skin glows with an unhealthy spectral luminescence. He is an avatar of filth and corruption, the personification of pestilence and infection, whose impure touch carries instant contagion, AIDS on 2 legs. He is the fear of what lies beyond the curtain in the tunnel of love. If all Batman's encounters with his villains correspond to various psychological states, then this is how Batman views sexuality, intrinsically unclean. AIDS on two legs, but with all the manifestations of that horrific virus, so ubiquitous in our cultural zeitgeist of the late 1980s, now externalized and visible, instantly contagious. Clayface is an allegory for HIV, but not hidden under dim neon lighting and caked on makeup in a dive bar at 2 a.m., but raw and naked for all the world to see. How did he get this way? It must have been through isolation. At the end of the upcoming Clayface movie, Batman must imprison him in a manner that his deformed body cannibalizes itself. The way AIDS works is that the virus itself is not what kills you. AIDS stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, in which your body loses the ability to fight off what the medical community calls opportunistic infections. Allegorically, that's what happens to Clayface. The Renew You element, which he first introduced to his own face perhaps a decade ago at this point in order to reverse the disfiguring scars from his car accident, it is no longer malleable to him, no longer under his control, and symbiotic, but now only a parasite, eating him down to skin and bones and green radioactive flesh, like a man suffering lymphoma after a nuclear fallout. So you see, it doesn't matter how the bulk of the Clayface movie plays out, as long as in the end, motivated by pity, Batman and the city of Gotham contain Clayface like a live frog in a giant sealed mason jar. The Renew You contaminant must be presented as similar to Eddie Brock's symbiote in Venom. If it doesn't feed, it becomes more aggressive and turns on its host.
You bit somebody's head off.
Fuel in the tank.
And this could make for one hell of a disturbing end credits scene. We all remember that terrifying opening of Jackson's Return of the King, watching Smeagol transform into Gollum as the Ring of Sauron polluted his body, punishing him for keeping his treasure hidden from its maker. Clayface could have a similar montage. As he is defeated, Gotham's city elites don't strike a finishing blow, but take mercy on him, believing he is not beyond rehabilitation. He is, after all, a sympathetic victim. Too dangerous for Gen Pop and far too deranged for solitary confinement in a normal prison, he is condemned to deteriorate slowly in the serious house on serious earth, Arkham's Asylum for the criminally insane. But over the next decade, as the Joker 2019 version of Gotham City deteriorates with further corruption and decay, spiraling into the chaos of a nearly post-apocalyptic Detroit, the asylum loses all funding and is eventually abandoned to a skeleton crew of idealistic philanthropists and shady guards who can't get a job anywhere else. It is then and there that Clayface is freed by Joker, 10 years later, a shadow of his former self. Which leads us to our final question. Why should James Gunn or Peter Safran or David Ellison or whoever the hell will be making creative decisions behind the scenes for the next 5 years do a movie where Batman ends up trapped inside Arkham Asylum? In the graphic novel, Morrison offers us an intriguing contradiction as an answer. In this timeline, nearly all of Batman's most recognizable adversaries have been contained in the sanitarium. And yet, for all his accomplishments in getting these villains locked up, Morrison presents Batman's suffering inside Arkham as a necessary trial by fire. Bruce Wayne has to face his own demons in order to emerge born again out of the other side as the stoic, undeniably masculine, immovable oak of a crime fighter we have grown to love. He escapes the madhouse as a man who has overcome all fear, unshakable, and the best part is, the therapist who cures him is the Joker.
You just wanted to make fun of me.
Like in 2019, this is actually the Joker's story. He is the true protagonist with an objective to be achieved. This iteration of Joker could even be a prodigy of Arthur Fleck.
I used to watch you on TV.
The continuation of his legacy, which should have been, rather than the failed sequel we got with Joker 2, Folie à Deux. It's here in the sanitarium, 20 years later, that the same mad clown who made Bruce a traumatized, miserable orphan now rips his adversary to shreds, melts his iron down to molten metal, and reforges him into the greatest force for justice the world will ever see. Within Arkham Asylum, Batman brutally kills others to save himself and leaves their bodies behind out in the open before scurrying away. He executes one villain, Dr. Destiny, from behind in the shadows, the optics of kicking a man in a wheelchair to send him tumbling down the stairs to his death renders Morrison's agenda pretty clear, and it's only punctuated further at the end of the story. When Bruce Wayne must be saved by a woman we would ordinarily see him rescue at knife point. This author's version of Batman is nobody's hero, not yet. Not until he's been purged. Not until Joker is done with him. In the notes section of his script, Morrison describes the moment wherein Batman escapes Arkham not through brute strength, but because he had the courage to abandon his own fate to chance, to the flip of a coin, to Harvey Dent's Two-Face. Of his own volition, Batman leaves the decision of his own life or death in the hands of the very lunatics he incarcerated.
Why don't we let Two-Face decide what to do with me?
Me? No. I can't.
Grant Morrison writes, quote, Batman has faced his own personal abyss, integrated his psychological demons, and emerged stronger and more sane from the other side of the looking glass. Having been through the reversal of all his normal valencies, the 80s Batman, purified and purged of negative elements, is returned to Gotham City to become the super confident Zen warrior of subsequent JLA stories. Look, I get it, all right? I know all this is wishful thinking, but it's not impossible. No matter what DC has already got in the can for Clayface, post-credit sequences could be added or altered with the movie still 7 months away. With the right influence from fans, a healthy dose of praise, pressure, and petition, DC could be encouraged to take this road less traveled. If James Gunn claims that Peacemaker Season 2 is necessary canon, it's clear he's not afraid to experiment with expectations. So take a freaking chance already. If you're gonna make a mistake, make it big. Hollywood has an undeniable obsession with deconstructing heroes and villains of the past. There is a right and a wrong way to do that. Morrison's deconstruction of Batman, envisioned way back in 1989 as a postmodernist, European, and Impressionist interpretation of the character, could be the perfect template. DC should know by now that fans who idolize Batman do not want to see him emasculated, humiliated, and helpless, then executed, the way he was in Kill the Justice League. But we do want to see Batman scared. That is compelling. Before I go, a quick shout out to Russian Comic Book Geek for the use of his narrated motion comic. It's truly mesmerizing, and I highly recommend it on his channel. If you made it to the end, I thank you for listening, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Am I a fool to hope we'll ever see an Arkham Asylum movie? A true Batman horror flick? Am I giving Morrison far too much praise, and this story is simply unworthy of a theatrical release? What are the problems this movie presents, canonically, if we stick exclusively to Grant Morrison's vision? If we do, which version of the Joker should we see? And if you dig my spiel and want to hear more of my ludicrous deep dives and insane rambling, check out this video I did on how the video game Buddy Simulator 1984 actually gave us a quick glance into the mind of God. Just click on the video on your screen right now.